Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're here to discuss Erika Girardi, aka Erika Jayne, and all the legal problems that she has going on. If you watched my last recap and you've been following my tweets and things like that, I've been saying how I wanted to do a video diving into all the allegations that have been made against Tom and Erika, go through all the articles that have been posted about her, and actually read the actual complaint that was filed against her in the plane crash case, because I think that's like the biggest case that we have right now. That's the one that's really being talked about on the show. And I had the tea. I had the complaint. I want to really dive into it and dissect it and give you guys the information you need, because a lot of us are, well, a lot of you guys, I've actually done my research aside from this, but a lot of you guys are getting your info from the show, and obviously there's only so much that the show even talks about. I know they brought up the article about Tom and Erika in the latest episode, but they didn't actually really dive into everything that's been being said in the article and everything that's being alleged against Tom. When you get a full breakdown of everything that's going on, you get a better picture of why Erika is doing certain things on the show, because she is trying to build a case that, she's a victim in this, and that Tom's a bad guy and she's naive and she didn't know anything, and honestly, it's just not the case. I got into a little bit of a Twitter feud yesterday with someone who was defending Erika, saying that, I've been spewing out a lot of allegations, but there's no facts behind it. But the facts that I do have is that Erika has been lying. That I know for sure. She's contradicted herself numerous times on this show. And, I'm not even going to go into like the cheating rumors and things like that, because honestly, that's irrelevant to this case. It literally has nothing to do with anything that's going on. Whether Tom cheated on Erika or not, to be honest, I don't care about that. I don't think that's important. What I find important is the actual cases that are being brought up. And it's not just one case, it's multiple cases. And honestly, when we go through all this, I'm going to give you guys my opinion at the end of where I think this is going to go. But I don't think it's looking good for them. Now, I want to preface this video by saying I'm not an attorney, I'm not a lawyer. So y'all don't go in the comments, ask me for legal advice about what to do about your baby daddy not paying you child support, because I can't give you any legal advice. I'm just not authorized to do that. I will say though, I have worked in law for many years. I have a career in law. I started working in tax law and helping people with their tax issues and things like that. After tax law, I went into family law. I was a family law senior paralegal and office manager. So I handled all the cases. I wrote all the legal pleadings, the divorce pleading, the complaint, all of that. So I know everything about divorce and family law, all those issues. I know everything about it. So divorce thing, I also don't really care about, because to me, the divorce is important in all this, because it's going to determine, if Erika's going to owe anything or some things like that. But the main case is obviously the actual lawsuits, which don't have anything really to do with the divorce. But yeah, I've worked in a law firm for many years doing family law. Then I went on to what I do now. I worked in the insurance liability area of law. So we represent like insurance companies and things like that when they get sued. But anyways, so that's my background. So the reason I want to do this video is because some of you guys, maybe you even found the complaint online, but some of you guys don't really understand how to read it, because there's some legal terminology, and then the way it's formatted, it might be confusing to you. So I want to at least read it and dissect it for you guys, for those who don't really understand how to do that. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm actually really excited because we have a lot to cover. The first thing I want to talk about is the article that was brought up on the show in this last episode. So if you guys remember, in the latest episode, an article drops that's called "The Legal Titan and the Real Housewife: The Rise and Fall of Tom Girardi and Erika Jayne." I want to actually read this in full, because you learn a lot more than what you just saw on the show. Like, that was just a little tiny snippet. But when you read the whole thing, as Sutton said she did 3 times, you get a bigger picture of what's really going on. So I want to start with reading that article. So let me get my tablet, guys. So a lot of the article was just like a backstory of how Erika and Tom met. And honestly, I don't think that part is really important to really discuss. So I'm actually going to skip that portion of it and just get to like the nitty gritty of what's going on. All right, so I just want to put a disclaimer out there. This is going to be a long video. So if you guys really don't like long videos, I might try to figure out how to break this up into sections, so you guys can just pick and choose which article you want to listen to me read, or if you want to just skip over to just listening to me here dissecting the complaint. I got to figure out how to do that. I might either just do timestamp, or I know there's a way you can do it on YouTube where you can just click through the little sections, but honestly I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to start with this article, because this is the one that actually got brought up in the show. It's It's called The Legal Titan, The Real Housewife, The Rise and Fall of Tom Girardi and Erika Jayne. I'm going to skim through it because, like I said, some of it is not really important. They give like a brief background of Tom. They said, he dominated consumer law in California for a long time, spanning decades, and, says he was wresting billions of dollars from drug companies, car makers, and polluters on behalf of the injured and cheated. Most famously in the case that inspired Aaron Brockovich. Honestly, I don't know who that is, so if you guys know who that is, you can fill me in the comments. It says that he cut those legal victories up to 40%, brought him spectacular wealth, and with his third wife, pop singer known as Erika Jayne, he appears in The Real Houses of Beverly Hills, flaunting the couple's historic Pasadena estate and lifestyle, private planes, jewelry, exotic cars, culture-filled closets and vacations in Aspen and Mykonos. Now, as of right now, it says he stands accused of stealing millions of dollars from vulnerable clients, including Indonesian children orphaned by a plane crash, a burn victim in the Pacific Gas and Electric pipeline explosion, and also his creditors who have demanded payment in court, among them high-interest lenders, fellow lawyers, a security company that once guarded his Pasadena mansion, and his first wife. Nearly all the attorneys who worked at his firm, Girardi and Keese, have left, including his own son-in-law, and last month, Jayne petitioned for divorce. So obviously, this article came out in December of 2020, so it's kind of a ways back, so you have to understand the timeline's a little bit different. But when they said like she just filed for divorce, she means like they filed for divorce in November, and now this article came out in December, right? So we're going to skim through because a lot of this is just about to give background information, which we don't really care about. All right, let's start with the warning signs. So it says there's warning signs that happen just beyond the Real Housewives, what we got to see. Because, in Real Housewives, we see Erika and Tom as like having this luxurious lifestyle, but apparently behind the scenes, they've been having legal problems within his firm, legal and financial problems. So we're going to get into a little bit of backstory, and then we'll get into like the main thing that's going on today. So it says hints of serious financial troubles at Girardi's law firm surfaced around 2015. At the time, he and his wife were becoming household names thanks to producers who cast them in the Beverly Hills editions of Bravo's Real Housewives, of which she appears as Erika Girardi. Girardi was then in his mid-70s but expressed no interest in retirement. His high energy and obsession with law were part of his persona on the show, and he publicly admitted having few hobbies and no succession plan at the firm he co-founded 5 decades previously. So he's been doing this for a long time. Like, he's been a lawyer for a very, very long time, guys. Like, literally decades. And he says that he's finally getting good at this, he joked to one reporter. He's been a lawyer since 1965. And Girardi had won a name for himself in medical malpractice, securing what he touted as the first verdict in California in excess of $1 million. He's gone on to conquer the nascent field of toxic torts, one of those environmental pollution suits brought on behalf of residents of the Mojave Desert town of Hinckley, resulted in a $333 million settlement with PG&E that supercharged his career. Alright, it says that problems emerged around 2015 from one of those David versus Goliath cases, a $17 million settlement for 138 senior citizen women who claim they developed cancer after taking hormone replacement therapy, which this is one of the very known cases that we know has been brought against Tom. So we're going to get into that a little bit. It says the payout the women received from Girardi's firm did not match the sum they anticipated, and they requested accounting. So what does that mean? They wanted to see, what the full settlement was and what the breakdown of fees were supposed to be, and then where the money actually went to. So like, literally, the firm would have to pull reports showing directly where all the money went to, like specifically how much went to each and every single victim, how much they actually received, and even like the breakdown of what the attorney and the firm get from that settlement. Because as you know, when a firm represents you in a case like that, when you win, let's say you win like a $10 million settlement in your favor, the firm gets a portion of that. It can be 33%, it can be more, it could be less. So the firm takes their portion and the rest goes to you. So they wanted to basically see like a paper trail of where that money went, right? So it says that the firm refused, and in 2014, about 24 women filed suit against Girardi and the firm. Girardi's lawyers insisted he had done nothing wrong, but they kept ignoring requests for bank records, emails, and other documents, despite orders from a federal magistrate court record show. The women became increasingly frustrated. Their lawyers alleged in the filings that the firm had misappropriated more than $10 million and suggested that the held-back documents would reveal the fraudulent and criminal nature of the wrongdoing. As the case moved toward trial, Girardi borrowed $12 million at a high interest rate from a Northern California company that specialized in funding law firms, and an additional $5 million from a similar lender in Arizona, according to timelines they later detailed in court papers. Within months, he reached a settlement with the cancer survivors. So it's important to note from this little section right here that he was actually requesting to get money loaned to his firm from other financial institutions. Like, there's 2 lending companies mentioned specifically in this portion that literally lended him a total of $17 million. Now, why do they have to lend him $17 million for him to, reach a settlement with the cancer patients? We're going to get to that. It all ties into the whole, this Ponzi scheme thing that we'll talk about later. But just keep in mind that he borrowed from 2 specific lenders who literally specialize in, sending out loans to law firms if they need it. And obviously that money had to be paid back eventually, but just keep that in mind because it's important to note for later, right? It was not the first time Girardi would have to borrow money. So then the next section goes into how Tom and Erika met. Honestly, don't care about it. We know he met her when she was like around 30. She was a single mother and she had a kid. I think she was like waiting tables or working as a stripper. I don't remember, but that's, they met a long time ago, and honestly, they've been together for a long time. So we're going to skip that, right? But it does say, Girardi was very influential in California. It says he donated a lot to the Democratic Party, including Joe Biden, who says turned to Girardi and Jayne when he came to LA to raise money. And the pair hosted the president-elect for an event last year at the Jonathan Club, a private downtown social club. So he's well known. He's really influential. He knows a lot of politicians. He knows a lot of judges. And he knows people in high places, which that's also important because when you are someone as powerful as Tom Girardi, you can make things happen that other people cannot make happen. You can make things go away. You can make lawsuits disappear. You can, give hush money to people so they don't speak out against you. Obviously, I don't know that to be a fact, but we all know how that works in the social club. When you are a high-ranking person, you can make things happen that normal people would not be able to make happen. So who knows what secrets he's hiding. But anyways, let's go to this section. This says troubles in the law firm. It says, while Erika Jayne and her castmates frolicked in Italy and the Bahamas, Girardi's working quietly to keep his law firm afloat. Although few at Girardi Keese or the larger legal community knew it, he went back to high-interest lenders again and again for help. He was so secretive that the companies giving money did not know there were other lenders holding the same collateral, according to a lawsuit filed by one lender and a sworn declaration by another company. The collateral Girardi put up for the loans was the anticipated fees of a number of large contingency lawsuits, court records show. At various points, these included the litigation over the Porter Ranch gas leak and cases against the National Football League, Shell Oil Co., the maker of the diabetes drug Avandia, and others. The loans were made at rates of up to 20% with even higher interest for missed payments. He presented himself to them as a safe bet. He tallied his net worth in an affidavit 2 years ago at $264 million, which would have been 2018, including ownership interest in 2 planes, $9 million in jewelry at cost, $3 million in antiques, art, and furniture, and his Pasadena estate, which he valued at $15.5 million. So, why is this important, guys? So basically what they're saying is a lot of lending companies were giving him loans to basically keep his firm afloat because apparently his firm was having financial problems, so he was going to all these different lenders secretly. He wasn't telling any other lenders that he already was getting loans from other people. So let's say he went to lender A, he asked them for $5 million, like a $5 million loan, and as collateral, which means if I'm not able to pay back this loan, I have assets, like my mansion's worth $15.5 million, so if I have to sell my mansion, you'll get your money back from me, whatever portion I get from selling that mansion. That's what it means with collateral. So he went to lender A, but then he went to lender B asking for $6 million or whatever, and lender B did not know that he already went to lender A and got money. So all these different lenders he's going to, he's keeping a secret that he's already getting help from all these other people. Because honestly, if you guys know anything about business, like if I'm a loan or like a lender company, and someone comes to me saying, they need like $15.5 million, and they can assure me they're going to pay it back. It sounds good on paper, right? But then if I find out that they're also getting the same loans from 2 or 3 other people, I'm not going to want to give them a loan because it already shows me that they're not even able to stay afloat as it is because they already have 3 other companies that are loaning them money. So that's why it says that he was keeping a secret, that he was already getting money from some of these other companies. So it says, conservatively, our fees for 2016 will be in excess of $110 million. Girardi wrote in an affidavit submitted that year to the chief executive officer of a company named American Law Firm Funding. He noted additional assets, a Temecula real estate investment, and shares of a Nevada casino operator. and then mentioned his wife's career. He says, I believe that Erika Jayne record sales and performances will be worth a large sum of money, but I believe it's a little too speculative to make a substantial factor. So he basically saying, he believes his wife has assets as well and she's worth a lot of money, but he can't make a determination of what amount that really is right now. So that's crazy that it is, because that already shows that he is already putting a value on Erika Jayne and her career. So if something ever happened to him, he can use her assets too if he needed. Which is a big red flag, because, Erika Jayne saying she didn't know anything about this. If it is true that Erika didn't know about any of Tom's financial issues with his firm, it's very shady of Tom to even mention her assets and basically use her as collateral if needed. That's kind of fucked up. So it says, meanwhile, Girardi's creditors were growing concerned. The lenders expected that once Girardi settled major cases for millions, they would get their money, but Girardi Keese wasn't paying its debts. Law Finance Group, a Northern California lender, had access to some of the firm's records and didn't like what it was seeing. Company officials noticed, as its chief executive would later write in a sworn affidavit, that very substantial sums denominated as loans were going from firm accounts to EJ Global LLC, the company set up for Jayne's performing career. The amount transferred topped $20 million, according to the affidavit. Y'all, why is this a big deal? Okay, remember I just mentioned earlier how I got into a feud with someone on Twitter about, they were defending Erika and saying these are all like allegations and it's not true. What is true, what this article is saying is that there is court records that show one of the finance companies, the lender companies that were loaning Tom's firm money, had actually accessed his bank records and financial records, because a lot of times you have to do that. If you're going to loan someone money, you're going to want to see their whole financials. So I guess this company actually got to see them, and what they saw, which they writ in an actual affidavit, which if you guys don't know what an affidavit is, it's a sworn statement that you make, which is literally notarized and signed, that says everything you're saying in this affidavit is truthful. So what did they say in the affidavit? They said they were concerned because they saw that money from the firm, which totaled $20 million, had been sent to Erika's company, her LLC, which is EJ Global, Erika Jayne Global. That's a big deal, okay? This is exactly what Sutton was talking about in this latest episode when she said that if Erika's name is on this LLC, it's going to be big trouble for Erika, because she is going to be responsible, because she willingly accepted those funds from Tom's firm, which most likely were illegal funds that weren't the firm's money to give to Erika at all. So that's a big deal. This is exactly what Sutton was talking about, and it makes a lot of sense, because if this really is Erika's company, she's taking bad money. She's taking illegal money, she's taking dirty money, and she could definitely be held liable according to reports, right? So this is a big deal. We're going to dive into this more when we get into the complaint, but just keep that in mind. So we actually have a sworn affidavit from a lender who actually saw the financial statements that Tom's firm definitely was transferring Erika money. So this is no longer speculation. This was written in a sworn affidavit, and I'm sure the lender has the affidavit or the financial records to prove this. So we're going to keep going on. It says that it became frustrating and impossible to get the money, the CEO, Alan Zimmerman, recalled in an interview. After 9 months of demanding payment, LFG filed suit in 2019 alleging that the money loaned to the firm had been spent partly on Mr. Girardi's lavish lifestyle. Girardi was enraged. Girardi says that LFG's claims that he used 1 penny of the funds to fund his lifestyle is a total fraud, he stemmed in a letter to LFG's lawyers. 4 judges called me after they saw the lying materials. Every one of them stated, the opposing lawyers better not come for me in the courtroom. Y'all, this is a big deal. So if he really wrote this letter, he's basically threatening this lender, saying that you better not step foot at any one of these judges that I know courtroom, because they're basically going to demolish you. And that's very, very, very scary to think about. Could you guys imagine being a lender and, Tom's not paying you back, so, you want to file a lawsuit, and then Tom sends you a letter threatening you, saying if you get any one of these judges as your judge for the case, you're not even going to have a chance of winning. That just shows that there is so much corruption going on in this case. All these cases against Tom, like I said, he has power and influence, so he can literally be buying out these judges so that they can give him favorable outcomes. It's happened before. There's been so many cases that judges have been accused of being, dishonest and doing things that are illegal, which is being paid in the back and then, doing whatever one person wants to do because they're paying you. There's been so many examples of this over history, and it just sounds like Tom is basically threatening this lender. So this is a big deal. This is really fucked up, guys. It's really fucked up. So it says Girardi managed to settle with the lender, but other creditors were already lining up at LA County Superior Court. It says a company that provided back office services for class action lawsuits demanded $7.5 million. An expert witness wanted $40,000 in fees. The security company that provided an armed guard at the Pasadena estate said it was owed $53,000. And a Long Beach lawyer who had referred cases to Girardi sued for nearly $4 million, according to lawsuits each filed. Now, I have a separate article that actually goes over pretty much all of the lawsuits that have been filed against Tom and his firm, which I'll probably go over that next or after one of the other articles I read. But just know there's other lawsuits, and we're going to get into like the specific of what those lawsuits are, okay? So it says Girardi's first wife, with whom he split in 1983, revived a case that had sat dormant for decades to complain that her $10,000 a month alimony payments had stopped abruptly, court records show. So it says, in the swirl of the creditors, one young man stood out. Now, I want you guys to keep note of the next person I'm going to say, because he's going to be very important with these lawsuits. He's going to come up a lot. He's going to be brought up on the show as well. I don't know if he's already been brought up, but guys, this is like one of the main cases that are being brought against Tom. It's one of the most fucked up cases. So it says, in the swirl of creditors, one young man stood out. Joseph Rigomez, not sure how to pronounce his name, Rigomez, suffered burns over 50% of his body during the 2010 PG&E pipeline explosion in San Bruno when he was 19 years old. Y'all, he was 19 years old when this happened. Like, can you imagine, like, you have your whole life ahead of you and then a devastating explosion happens and you get burned on half of your body? Like, that's just so tragic, and I feel so bad for this man. It says Girardi's firm had negotiated a substantial confidential settlement, but in the years that followed, his family concluded that the lawyer had misappropriated millions of dollars of their money. Stealing client money is a very serious allegation for attorneys. Lawyers can be disbarred and even charged criminally for such conduct. In January, Girardi signed an agreement to pay the Rigomez family $12 million, but after paying $1 million, he stopped. So apparently there's already a confidential settlement that was reached. I don't know how much it is, because obviously it's confidential, so we'll never know. But basically, they settled the case. The man's family was getting mad, so they, spoke out against Girardi, and they finally settled again for $12 million. And out of the $12 million that he was supposed to get, the man only got $1 million from Girardi and his firm, and after that, the money just stopped coming. Period. And he's owed $11 million, right? So the family had enough. Their lawyers hauled Girardi into court and made it clear that they would go to great lengths to get the money. They informed state and local governments that they had a claim on Girardi's assets and put a lien on $23 million settlement he had won for double amputee injured in a car accident. They served legal papers on the Girardi Keese accountant, Girardi's personal travel agent, Jayne herself, his son-in-law, and even the membership director of the Jonathan Club, where they noted initiation fees ran $45,000. It says, prepared to testify under oath about the state of Tom Girardi's finances, the legal notices announced. Now, here's the big thing, right? What did you guys just notice about that? What did they say? It says that not only did they serve legal papers on Tom Girardi himself, his associates, they also served legal papers on Erika Jayne, which we're going to get into, because now we actually have proof that Erika Jayne knew about at least one of these lawsuits. And as you guys remember on the show, I think it was episode 11, when she's talking to Garcelle and Crystal at the desert, Garcelle asked her, like, did you ever get a heads up from Tom about these lawsuits? Is that why you filed for divorce? And what did Erika say? Erika said no, she had no idea, right? Now we know for a fact that she's lying, which this doesn't give a date, but I have a separate article that actually gives a date of when she was actually legally noticed that there was a lawsuit pending against Tom by this burn victim. We're going to get into that. That'll be the next one I read, guys. So just keep that in mind. So as of right now, we already know that Erika's lying, right? It says in the Wilshire Boulevard offices, people who had worked with Girardi for decades were becoming nervous, according to individuals familiar with the situation. He had complete control over the finances, and he was secretive about them. Where had all the money gone, they asked each other. Lawyers started leaving. In June, David Lyric, Girardi's son-in-law, resigned on a Saturday. The firm that once had 30 lawyers was soon down to single digits. The situation only worsened for those who remained. A Chicago firm that had helped represent 4 Indonesian families with loved ones killed in a 2018 plane crash kept calling about missing settlement money. Boeing had already transferred about $2 million for each plaintiff, so why hadn't the families received all the money? The Chicago lawyers asked. Now, this is a big deal. So the complaint I'm talking about was actually filed by this Chicago law firm. So basically, I think what had happened was Girardi and his firm represented some of the victims in the plane crash, like the Indonesian plane crash that's been talked about all over the show. And the Chicago firm, I think, represented like the other portion. But the way it had went was when the case had finally settled, like Bowen had to like pay all these people money. The money was actually transferred to Girardi and Keese for them to oversee the money and then distribute the settlement. So the Chicago law firm did not have any control over the money, even though they helped represent some of the victims of the crash. So we'll get into that when we read the complaint, but just keep that in mind. So this is where this complaint is coming from. It's coming from the Chicago law firm, right? It says, when they finally reached Girardi in July, he offered an extremely convoluted and meandering explanation of what happened to the funds, according to the lawsuit the attorneys later filed. Another firm lawyer, Keith Griffin, later told them half the money had been paid and more was on the way, even claiming to have seen the wire transfer confirmation, according to court filings. Y'all, that's a big deal. These are, like I said, these are court filings. So that means that somewhere in these court records, this attorney who works for Girardi and Keese has said that he actually seen the wire transfer himself. That he sees the money actually existed. That's a big deal, okay? So he's admitting that the money actually got sent to Girardi and Keese. It says, but the funds apparently never arrived, and Griffin later admitted that Girardi hadn't actually paid the clients, and that he was skeptical that Girardi had the financial means to do so. So he basically recanted on himself. So first he said that he actually seen the wire transfer and that he actually seen the money come in from Boeing. Now he's saying that he actually never even seen the money and that Girardi has full control over all the financials. He doesn't even believe that Girardi has the financial means to pay these clients. Which doesn't make sense, because if Boeing, which I believe Boeing actually transferred the money, there's going to be a paper trail, guys, when this all comes to trial. There's going to be a paper trail that shows that Boeing actually transferred all the money for the victims to Girardi and Keese, who's then supposed to give it to their clients. Because as you guys know, most of the times in cases like this, the company that owes money isn't going to send the money directly to the client. It's going to go to the client's attorney first, then the attorney will take out their fees, and then the rest will go to the client. So we know for sure that Boeing definitely transferred that money, right? But now this guy who actually worked for Girardi and Keese said that at first there was the money, he saw it, but now he's saying he actually never saw it and that he doesn't even think that Tom can actually pay these clients, which is a big deal, because why would he be able to pay these clients if Boeing actually gave him the money to do so? Doesn't make sense, right? We'll get into that. Ponzi scheme, guys. Remember, Ponzi scheme. We'll get to that. So it says, Griffin did not return message seeking comment. He quit the firm this month in December 2020 and told a federal judge this week that he was merely a firm employee and that Girardi had sole control of the Indonesian client's money. Now, Griffin, boy, you're in your trouble too, because you already said you saw that money and now you're saying that you didn't. It's clear that you quit because you see this going downhill super fast and you do not want to get caught up in the mess. So that's just what it looks like from the outside. So it says, in late September of 2020, Joseph Rugomez's attorneys finally had a chance to confront Girardi about his assets in a proceeding known as a judgment debtor exam. Testifying on a video conference call because of the pandemic, the attorney seemed for the first time resigned about his financial situation. He said his stock portfolio of about $50 million was all gone. He had maybe only a couple of $1,000s in a personal bank account, according to excerpts of a transcript filed in the court. Basically, Tom was broke. So when asked about his income, he said, I haven't taken a penny in salary out the firm for more than 2 years. On the date set for Erika Jayne's testimony, she was out of town and was rescheduled for January. She filed for divorce on election day, which, as you guys know, was in November, citing irreconcilable differences, indicating she planned to seek spousal support from Girardi, who allegedly has no money. So it says that Girardi continued putting on a confident face to people demanding money. Girardi touted his firm's representation of more than 8,000 plaintiffs in litigation against Southern California Gas Company over the massive Porter Ranch gas leak, telling a creditor in a letter that this summer, I believe a very conservative estimate as to the settlement for our clients would be in the $900 million area. Basically saying that if he wins his case, he thinks that he'll get in total of up to $900 million. Boy, bye, you lying. So then he said he left voicemails last month promising to make things right with the Indonesian clients, which we're going to get into that in the complaint. I don't want to really go over this because this is actually detailed way more in the complaint that was filed against Tom and his law firm. So I'm going to skip over some of this. So basically he promised that, he'd be paying those Indonesian clients their money, but eventually, the money was found to never have been paid to these clients. And it says, this week, a federal judge in Illinois overseeing the Indonesian case ordered Girardi to appear before him to explain what happened to $2 million due to the victims' families. Now, if you guys remember on the show, this actually happened in, I think, the episode 11, what did Erika tell us? She said that, there was a court case going on in Chicago that she's not required to attend, but, she's going to get the hearing transcript from her attorneys, and they're going to go over everything what happened. I'm pretty sure this was the court case that she was talking about. So basically, in this court case, they had asked him to show what happened to the $2 million of funds that are supposed to be going to these victims, right? And it says, one of the attorneys representing the crash victims, Jay Edelson, said in court that for at least the last decade, Girardi has been running his firm like a Ponzi scheme. And it says, what they do is when money comes in, they use that money to pay previous creditors and previous clients, and then they wait till more money comes in, Edelson said. I guess everything just caught up with them. And it says, U.S. District Judge Thomas M. Durkin asked Girardi, why wouldn't everything be paid to the plaintiffs upon receipt of the money? It says, neither Girardi nor two criminal defense attorneys had recently hired responded. It says, I would like the record to reflect that there was silence, the judge said. Basically, no comment has been made from Girardi or his attorneys, which is super fucked up. As Girardi's legal team said their client had been unable to help them understand what became of the money. One lawyer said in court that Girardi has had issues with mental competence. Another asked the judge to order a mental health exam. The judge referred Girardi to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. He also froze Girardi's personal assets and those of Girardi Keese, a step that appeared to have come too late, as one lawyer told the judge the firm's operating account contained just $15,000. It says, hours later, Erika Jayne posted a picture in silver stilettos, elbow-length mesh gloves, and lilac lingerie, and she captured the image saying, put me on your wish list. Y'all, this is so fucked up. So fucked up. So fucked up. So, literally, the firm's operating account, which is literally the money they use to, pay the firm, employees, to pay off debts, bill, all that, only has $15,000. This is the big deal. The money is literally gone. It's gone. There's no money left. So, what you guys need to understand why I'm so pissed off about all this is even if Erika Jayne and Tom Girardi are found to be guilty, the problem is they don't have any money to even pay these clients. All these victims of all these accidents, they're not even be able to get their money, even if it's proven that Tom and Erika are guilty. That is the most fucked up part of this. Because once Boeing transferred that money to Girardi Keese for those Indonesian clients, like the victims of the people who died in the plane crash, that money was solely Girardi Keese was responsible for that money, right? If the money is gone, that's it. Boeing is not responsible for paying out another settlement because they did their due diligence. They paid the money to the firm as they were instructed to do and as the court ordered them to do. And they're not responsible for giving more money. They already did what they had to do. And honestly, Boeing is not going to just pay out more settlement. That's just not their responsibility. They shouldn't have to do that. It's not. I mean, I know some of you guys will probably think, well, Boeing is a big company, so that they can afford to do it, but that's not the point. That's just not how business works. If I get into, if my business is responsible for a devastating accident and I pay, $5 million to the victim and I give it to, the firm as I'm instructed to, and then the firm misappropriates the money or steals the money or whatever, it is not my responsibility as a business to then pay out another $5 million. That's just not how it works. It's not my responsibility. I know that sounds fucked up, but this is the way business works. Boeing already did their portion, and they paid what they were supposed to pay. Tom Girardi is the one who's fucked up in this situation. So this is all fucked up. So the Ponzi scheme thing, right? So what they were saying is basically, let's say Tom has a bunch of debt, his firm has a bunch of debt. Let's say he owes $5 million in debt to creditor A, right? So he doesn't have the money right now to pay creditor A for whatever reason. He's broke or whatever, right? Then he wins a case tomorrow for, let's say, $5 million. He wins a case for $5 million, right? And part of the case is he was representing a client that had some type of accident. The $5 million that he won from that case is supposed to go to that client for that case, right? Well, instead of giving that $5 million to the client for that case, he instead gives it to creditor A, who he already owed $5 million to. So now creditor A is paid and they're happy. But guess what? What's the problem? The client, for the case that he just won that $5 million for, did not get their money because now Tom already gave that money to someone else that he wasn't supposed to give it to. So what happens next? Now Tom doesn't pay them for a month, maybe even a year, until he wins a next case for, let's say, another $5 million for a different client, but then that $5 million goes to client A, who he was supposed to give $5 million to in the first place, and now client B has to wait for their money again until he wins another case. Completely unethical, definitely a Ponzi scheme. That's what they were accusing him of, and honestly, it makes sense if you think about it, because where is all this money going? Where did the money go that came from the plane crash? Where did it go? Nobody knows. But we do know that his firm gave $20 million to Erika's company. So we'll leave that there. Now, what's the other thing to note in this, guys? The other thing to note is they're trying to claim that Tom is basically mentally handicapped. We do learn out later, I think this year, that he actually does have late onset dementia and Alzheimer's. So I know they're going to try to use it as a defense to say, that's why all the money was going to the wrong place, because he just didn't know what he was doing. But honestly, it's not an excuse, because now I understand that Tom is in charge of the financial, but he has a partner. Like, it's Girardi Keese. It's not just Girardi's law firm. So there are other people involved. Even if he's mentally handicapped, they have to figure out how long he's been that way. And honestly, I still don't think that's going to be a great excuse as to why the money just disappeared, because he's still living a lavish lifestyle. He's giving his wife money. He seems very confident when he's like buying all these expensive private jet flights and all that. So it's just not an excuse, guys. It's not an excuse. So, and as you guys even see on the show over the years, he seemed completely fine to me. So I'm not buying it. So that was that article, guys. Let's go into another one, okay? So here is a list of lawsuits that have been filed against Tom and his law firm, okay? So it says in 2001, about 80 former Lockheed employees alleged Girardi misappropriated funds from a settlement for on-the-job exposure to chemicals. The case settled for an undisclosed amount in 2005. They give the case name. 2008, Luis Gutierrez versus Thomas v. Girardi et al. It says additional Lockheed employees alleged Girardi misappropriated funds from a settlement for on-the-job exposure to chemicals. The California judge dismissed the case as time-barred, which was upheld on appeal. 2011, it says I don't know how to pronounce this name, Prakasaphalan et al. Versus Engstrom, Lipscomb, and Lack. Victims of the 1994 Northridge earthquake alleged Girardi Keese and other firms misappropriated funds from an insurance-covered settlement. The case was dismissed as time-barred. 2012, Britton versus Girardi. Additional victims of the 1994 Northridge earthquake alleged Girardi misappropriated funds from an insurance-covered settlement. This case was ultimately dismissed as time-barred, with an appellate panel using the Prakasaphalan case as precedent, like the case just before this. 2014, Judith Allen et al. Versus Girardi Keese. Elderly patients alleged Girardi misappropriated funds from a deal to resolve claims that the hormone replacement drug Prempro caused their cancer. Girardi settled the case for an undisclosed amount after the plaintiff's counsel obtained Girardi Keese's bank records and filed a detailed motion for contempt. So this is a case about the cancer patients. So basically, the settlement was reached, but as we know, some of the victims of this hormone replacement therapy basically did not get paid. So that's another case. 2016 was Kranick versus Girardi et al. Kranick, another former Lockheed employee from years ago, alleges Girardi misappropriated funds from settlement for on-the-job exposure to chemicals. Kranick further accused Girardi of stealing $8.5 million from a batch of settlements, saying that the attorney in 2005 used $3.5 million of that sum to settle a previous Lockheed settlement skimming suit. Kranick's case was dismissed as time-barred. Now, why is that important to know, right? This person, even back all the way in 2016, alleged that the settlement money that had been won for this guy's specific case, right? Some of the settlement was actually used to pay back one of the other Lockheed cases. Because as you know, it's like the third Lockheed case that's been brought up so far on this docket, right? So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because what is he being accused of now in 2020 and 2021? As running a Ponzi scheme where he gets a settlement, but then he pays it for some other debt instead of the actual client he's supposed to be giving the money to. So this goes back all the way to 2016 that someone's claiming he did this. So that's important to know. So this is clearly a pattern for Tom and his firm. So 2017, Richard Fair versus Tom and V. Girardi et al. Residents of the Carousel Housing Tract in Carson, California, alleged Girardi misappropriated funds from a settlement reached with Shell Oil Co. and Dole Food Co. to resolve claims companies concealed that their neighborhood was built on a toxic waste dump. Girardi Keese tried and failed to have the case transferred to a retired judge in 2019. The case is currently pending. 2019, the burn victim. Joseph Rugomez et al. Versus Girardi Keese et al. A family whose home was destroyed in the 2010 San Bruno natural gas pipeline explosion alleges Girardi took millions of dollars from their settlement with Pacific Gas and Electric Co. Girardi settled the case for $12 million in 2020, but has not paid the full amount. But as of right now, the burn victim has only been paid $1 million, right? So he still owed $11 million. So this case is still ongoing. 2020, Judy Selberg versus Tommy V. Girardi et al. A woman whose husband died in a boating accident alleges Girardi took $450,000 of her $500 wrongful death settlement. The case is still pending. In this is probably the most sad one. In Lion Air Flight JT610 crash, 5 clients allege Girardi took at least $2 million from settlement reached with Boeing over the deaths of their relatives in a 2018 plane crash. Eldison, which is a different firm, alerted the Chicago federal judge overseeing the case in December about the missing funds. An attorney for Girardi and his law firm admitted the money was missing from a trust account, prompting the judge to freeze the assets of Girardi and Girardi Keese. So that's still ongoing, right? That's like the main case that's ongoing. And then in Thomas Vincent Girardi / Girardi Keese. In bankruptcy proceedings, at least 2 additional former Girardi Keese clients have so far filed claims totaling about $2 million against Girardi and the firm. One of the cases involved a woman who had reached a settlement with the retailer and a car seat manufacturer after the child was left severely disabled in the collision. So that's still ongoing. So these are the still cases that are ongoing. So we have the burn victim, the plane crash, and then another one that I just mentioned. And there's probably some more too. So that's that. So a lot of cases still pending against Tom. Most likely they'll never be paid, which is unfortunate. It's really sad to think about. So there's a complete timeline of Erika and Tom's legal problem, but I feel like I already went over most of the timeline. So this article just talks about the divorce, says that people were accusing Erika's divorce of being a sham to like hide assets and things like that, which I completely believe. And when this all happened, these articles were posting, Erika got mad and she posted alleged proof that Tom was cheating, which again is completely irrelevant to what's really going on. The weight of the situation is way worse than just, Tom cheating. Like that should be minimal, and that should be the last thing on Erika's mind. But again, she's trying to prove the case that she's innocent, she's a victim, she doesn't know anything, but nobody's buying it, right? The main thing is, like I said earlier, that the court had actually chosen to freeze Tom's assets because they found that he actually had misappropriated at least $2 million. Because when they looked in the bank account, they saw that it's not looking right, the money is not here, so what's going on? So they froze Tom's assets, right? It says on July 2021, Erika Jayne has to face Girardi's ex-client in the firm. The Gomez family, which is the burn victim, says Tom stopped distributing their settlement to them. A judge said on July 6th that they could continue their collection efforts against Erika and third-party transferees as part of Girardi's personal bankruptcy proceedings. And on July 7th, Jayne posted a gif of herself saying, "The Ice Queen can take it." Yeah, this is a big deal because literally the judge himself, let me just read that part again. It says, the judge said on July 6th of 2021 that the burn victim could continue their collection of efforts against Erika and third-party transferees. So because they're not getting their money from Tom Girardi, the judge is literally allowing them, if they want, to proceed against action against Erika to see if they can get their money from Erika, whatever Erika's assets are. That's a big deal. So Erika really is getting dragged into this, whether she likes it or not. So she's definitely a huge part of this right now. So it says the trustee handling Girardi Keese's bankruptcy case filed court papers on July 14th, claiming that Jayne and her companies owed the firm $12 million. It says none of the receivables owed by the defendant Jayne to the debtor Girardi Keese have been repaid to the debtor and remain outstanding, court papers state. It says plaintiff is informed and believes, and on the basis alleges thereon, that defendant Erika has used her glamour and notoriety to continue to aid and abet in sham transactions that have occurred with respect to large transfers of assets from the debtor to the defendant. So, what are they saying, right? It says Erika Jayne and her company owe $12 million basically to Girardi Keese, like the law firm, because as you remember, what did they say earlier? That the firm had actually gave Erika Jayne's company $20 million in as like a loan, right? And she still has never paid that loan back. Why did she never pay it back? Because the firm never expected her to pay it back, because that was Tom's way of funneling money that wasn't really supposed to go to Erika into her company, so that way, they can continue living their lavish lifestyle. It makes sense when you put it all together, right? If it's a loan, you would expect for Erika and her company to be able to pay it back over time, but she has never paid that loan back, that $20 million back, because it was meant as a gift. Like, it was money that came directly from the firm. So if she doesn't pay it back, she doesn't have to pay it back, right? She's not gonna get in trouble. Like, the firm's not gonna sue her because it's Tom's firm. So he's gonna make it seem like it's a loan, and she'll pay me back eventually. So like the records show that it's a loan and it's like legitimate, but Erika was never expected to pay that money back because it was money for her to do whatever she wants with it, for her and Tom to keep living the life that they're trying to portray on the show, right? Makes a lot of sense when you put it all together, right? There was one article I wanted to go over but I can just tell you what happened. So basically, in May of this year, May 2021, the state of California revoked Tom's bar license. What does that mean? He's literally no longer an attorney. They literally took away his bar license to practice law. That's a big deal because everyone's saying that Tom's innocent. Clearly, the state of California does not believe so. They literally stripped his bar license away. That's a huge deal. So he's no longer an attorney. He's no longer able to practice law. So we won't be seeing any more, Tom stealing money from clients because he ain't going to have no more clients after this. That's a big deal, right? After I talk about this next article, we're going to get into the actual complaint because this video, I told you this video is going to be long, and it is. So, like I said before, remember how she said that she had no heads up on any of the lawsuits and, they had nothing to do with the reason she filed for divorce. She filed for divorce because Tom was basically being mean to her. He's been a different person, and she found that he cheated on her, right? That's what she said on the show. Now, keep in mind that she filed for divorce on election day in November. And when she told the girls about everything that's been happening with Tom, like him cheating and stuff, that was a couple days before she filed for divorce. Because remember, on the show, they were out, I forgot where they were, I think like Lake Tahoe or something. I don't know. Someplace they were on vacation together. And then they all get back from vacation. They find out like Erika had just filed for divorce. And they were like, confused because they were just with her and she never mentioned it, right? So that trip had to be like late October or like the beginning of November, right? So that happens, right? She files for divorce. And then when she meets with Crystal and Garcelle in the desert for that, one of the previous episodes, that had to be around like December or whatever. So what did she say? She said that she had no heads up about any lawsuits, right? Wrong. She's lying. Again, I told you guys I had proof that she was lying. I'm going to give you guys the proof because I actually mentioned it briefly earlier. So it says, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Erika Jayne was served subpoenas twice in 2020 in person and failed to appear in court to address $11 million judgment. So it says, Erika Jayne claims to have been in the dark in regards to millions of dollars her now estranged husband Tom Girardi owed to past clients, but recently shared court documents seem to prove otherwise. As Erika maintains her innocence on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it has been revealed that she was served not once, but twice in-person subpoenas before ultimately failing to show up to her court date. So, let's get into this, guys. So the court case they were talking about, the $11 million, what is that $11 million? Of course, as we recall, it's the burn victim, because as you remember, he was supposed to be giving $12 million of a settlement. He was only given $1 million out of that $12 million. So he still owed $11 million. So basically this guy, the burn victim, he wanted to figure out why he's not getting the rest of his money. He's been asking Tom over and over again. He's not getting a clear answer. They're refusing to give bank records. They're just refusing to comply with the burn victim and his attorneys, right? So it says, Erika knew that Joe Gomez was owed $11 million because she was served twice in person starting in May 2020 to appear in court and to produce documents for the judge. On May 22nd, 2020, Erika received an application order for appearance and examination, as well as a civil subpoena for personal appearance and production of documents. Erika was also served the same documents on September 28, 2020, and she's required to furnish information to aid in enforcement of a money judgment against her at a court date set for October 22nd, 2020 at 10 a.m. But Erika didn't show up, and documents revealed she was out of town and unavailable. Most likely she was filming The Real Housewives, right? Alright, so why is this a big deal, okay? So like I said, she had been telling the girls between October and December that she had no idea about any of these lawsuits and she was completely left in the dark and that everything that's going on is Tom, only he has the answers, right? But we know for a fact now that it's a lie because she was served twice in person. Because as you guys know, or if you guys don't know, when it comes to a subpoena to appear at like a deposition or some type of examination, the attorney can't just say, here's a subpoena, you're required to appear. No. The subpoena that is requiring you to appear has to be personally served on you by a process server. So what does that mean? So a process server is someone who like serves you court papers. Like, so let's say someone files for divorce, like your spouse files for divorce. They're gonna file it with the court, and then a process server is going to be paid to basically deliver those documents to you in person. That says, okay, you've been served on this date, on I don't know August 14th, whatever, and here are your papers. And then the process server keeps a receipt and invoice showing the exact date and time that person was served. So like that way in court, like if they're summoned to a court date or whatever, that person can't say they were never served papers because the process server actually has the date and time they served that person, even the address that they served you at. So Erika was served in person twice in May 2020 and in September 2020. So both dates are before she even said that, Both days are before she filed for divorce, and they're before that she said that she had no idea about the lawsuit. So she's lying. I told you guys she was lying. This is just proof that she's been lying this whole time. Like, just this fact alone is proof enough to me that she's lying about everything. She knew about these lawsuits. To me, she knew about the money that was given to her by Girardi and Keese. I mean, she had to know because she accepted it. It's her business. So she knew about all this, and now she's trying to cover herself. She's trying to protect herself, and it's not going to work because even the judge had said, specifically to this burn victim, that he can go after Erika if he wants to. Erika is going down with Tom. That's what I believe. So that's that, guys, all right? Now, we got to get into the actual complaint, which to me is the juiciest thing about all of this, right? But all right, are you guys ready to get into this complaint? Because this is really going to wrap up and pretty much summarize. I mean, this case is only for the plane crash, but I think, honestly, this is like the biggest case against Tom and his firm. So I think it's probably the most important. I'm not saying the burn victim and the cancer papers are not important. They're equally as important. But I think that because this had way more victims, that to me, and it involves children, I think it's a lot more sad and unfortunate because most likely these victims are never going to get their money and they're never going to be whole again because of Tom and his fucking being a scam artist, right? So let's get into it. So this is complaint and demand for jury trial. So brief background, what is a complaint? A complaint is the first document you file in a case. So in like a civil or criminal case, it's called a complaint. If you were filing for divorce, it necessarily wouldn't be called a complaint. It'd be like a dissolution for marriage, which really just means divorce. But in all other types of law, it's usually called a complaint, right? So we're going to read it. It says, Plaintiff Edelson, PC, which is a law firm, the law firm in Chicago, brings this lawsuit against defendants Thomas Girardi, Girardi Keese, Erika Jayne, aka Erika Jayne, EJ Global, Erika's company, Girardi Financial, David Lira, Keith Griffin, Johnson Hutchinson and Lira LLP, Robert Finity, Abir Cohen Trazen, Salo LLP, California Attorney Lending, Stillwell Madison LLC, and John Doe 110 to recover monies due and owing to itself, as well as to seek disgorgement of all monies due and owing to all clients of Girardi Keese in the matter of Lion Air Flight JT 610 crash number 18 CV 07686. Plaintiff alleges as follows upon personal knowledge as to itself and its own acts and experiences, and as to all other matters upon information and belief. So the plaintiff is Edelson PC, which is the law firm in Chicago that helped represent the victims of the plane crash. Because as you know, it wasn't just Girardi Keese in the case, it was the Chicago firm as well. So they bring the suit not against just Tom, but his firm, Erika. They list other attorneys as well. Some of these attorneys actually used to work for Girardi Keese, and that's why they're listed, because this plaintiff, Edelson, the attorney, the law firm or whatever, had direct communication with some of these attorneys, and that's why they're listed. And also on this is Erika's company, Girardi's financial company, as well as California Attorney Lending, which is probably one of the lenders that had loaned Tom and his firm some money. So let's get into it. So the first section is nature of the action. This gives you guys like a background of what's going on. So it says, Tom Girardi and his law firm Girardi Keese are on the verge of financial collapse and locked in a downward spiral of mounting debt and dwindling funds. They presently owe tens of millions of dollars to clients, lenders, co-counsel, settlement administrators, and experts, to name only a few, and have tried in vain to forestall the payment of these debts with hollow promises, excuses, misdirection, and outright fraud. At the heart of this deception is defendant Girardi and his need to fund outrageous lifestyles for himself and his soon-to-be ex-wife, Erika Jayne. Tom and Erika have reached celebrity status in the glitz and glam world of Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Tom is a well-known and powerful personal injury attorney. Erika is a performer who is perhaps better known for her years-long presence on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, a show centered on the larger-than-life extravagances of its cast members. To keep up their celebrity status, Tom and Erika must project a public image of obscene wealth at all times and at whatever cost. As a result, and most egregiously, Tom has resorted to embezzling the proceeds of settlements that should have been directed to his clients, including, as the basis for this complaint, the widows and orphans who have lost loved ones in the tragic crash of Lion Air Flight 610, in order to continue funding his and Erika's lavish Beverly Hills lifestyles. Whew, that alone gives me chills, guys. So it says, Well, Erika publicly filed for divorce this month, which was December, because this is when this complaint came out, and this is also when Erika filed for divorce. Very convenient, right? On information and belief that divorce is simply a sham attempt to fraudulently protect Tom and Erika's money from those that seek to collect on debts owed by Tom and his law firm GK. This would not be the first attempt by Tom to hide and divert assets. Indeed, in a likely violation of the California's Union Fraudulent Transfer Act, defendant Jayne's company, defendant EJ Global, has allegedly received tens of millions in loans directly from defendant GK, of which Tom is the sole equity shareholder. So GK is Girardi Keese, if you guys don't know. So they're basically claiming that, this whole divorce is a way to basically hide assets and to basically protect all of the money that Tom's law firm had given to Erika Jayne and her company, right? So it says, Tom's downward spiral appears to have fully bottomed out. On information and belief, Tom's mounting loans and debts have piled up to such an extent that GK can no longer meet its financial obligation, and it is likely that GK will soon not be a going concern. But Tom's litigation financiers and other creditors, including Erika, are not the ones who stand the most to lose from the fall of GK. Instead, it's the Lion Air clients and potentially other clients who stand to lose everything. And that's because, on information and belief, Tom has embezzled and redirected the funds that were due to the Lion Air clients, and of lesser importance, plaintiff Edelson, to his family members, friends, and his and GK's lenders and other creditors, basically accusing Tom and his firm of embezzling money and giving it to his old creditors that he owes money to, his family, his wife, his friends, whoever he wants to, basically to keep up this, this social status in Beverly Hills. So he's giving money to organizations, probably like Democratic political organizations, his friends, whoever else he wants to give money to. And as you guys probably don't know, it's going to be mentioned in this complaint. This firm is not just bringing this complaint against Girardi for the money that was supposed to go to the victims of the plane crash. This firm is also owed money by Tom because, as you know, like I said before, when a settlement is reached, the firms who representing the clients also get a portion of the money. So this Chicago firm was owed a portion, they never got it. So it's supposed to be Tom's firm that gets a portion, the Chicago firm, and then the victims as well. But neither the victims nor this firm got their money, which we'll get into later, right? It says, these family members, friends, lenders, and other creditors of defendant Girardi and GK have not simply been passively receiving funds that could possibly be construed as valid repayments for loans made or obligations owed. Instead, with defendants Girardi's and GK's financial woes in full view, these people and entities, including defendants Lyra, California Attorney Lending, Stillwell Madison, have, on information belief, with the agreement of defendants Girardi and GK, structured an inter-creditor agreement amongst themselves that redirects them any monies received into the bank accounts of defendant GK. Pursuant to that agreement, on information belief, defendants Lyra, California Attorney Lending have knowingly demanded and received embezzled funds belonging to the Lion Air clients and plaintiff Edelson, despite all the while knowing that those funds belong to the Lion Air clients, represented by defendant GK and plaintiff Edelson PC, itself counsel of record in the Lion Air litigation. So what is that saying? He's basically saying that these lenders, like California Attorney Lending and other creditors who had been owed money by Tom, are willingly and knowingly accepting these embezzled funds because they want their money repaid. They don't care where the money's coming from. They just want their debts repaid that, Tom owes them. So this firm is basically accusing them of knowing that the money is illegal, but still accepting it anyways, which is a big deal if it's true. Girardi and GK's embezzlement and wrongful transfer to third parties of client funds simply cannot go unchecked. And while the present complaint is brought in part to enforce plaintiff's fee agreement with GK, those fees are not the primary focus of this complaint. Rather, this complaint also seeks to enforce GK, a firm that pushes the slogan, "We treat our clients like family," to uphold its fiduciary duty to the surviving families of the victims of Lion Air Flight 610 that it agreed to represent. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed, killing all 189 individuals on board. Litigations against Boeing followed, and nearly a dozen families, including widows and minor children, retained GK to represent them in seeking to recover the tragic loss of their loved ones. Plaintiff Edelson PC was later brought in as local counsel to assist in the litigation and settlement process. The litigation was individually settled for those clients in early 2020 for a substantial but confidential sum. The proceeds of those settlements were allegedly transferred thereafter from Boeing to GK. So basically, there was a settlement reach, which is confidential. We don't know how much it is, but the settlement money was transferred directly from Boeing to Girardi's law firm, right? Yet, on information and belief, Girardi was with cover for his action provided by his former partner David Lira and current partner Keith Griffin, prevented a significant portion of that money, and potentially all of it, from ever reaching the victims of this horrific crash. Girardi has instead kept it for his own purposes and doled it out to his friends and his family, all the while evading attempts by the clients to gain access to it. On information and belief, the Lion Air settlement proceeds are not the only client funds Girardi has withheld and misappropriated for personal use. In addition to embezzling his clients' funds, Girardi has also taken massive litigation loans for the stated purposes of funding the successful operation of his law firm, utilizing ongoing cases and his personal guarantee as collateral. Contrary to that purpose, and on information and belief, these loans appear to have been utilized to fund Girardi and Jayne's personal spending habits. Indeed, the timing of new litigation loans have allegedly corresponded with new loans from GK to his wife's company, defendant EJ Global. As a result of this misuse, millions of dollars in loans have fallen into default, resulting in litigation against Tom, his wife, and his firm. So basically what they said is, Girardi has offered himself, like his own assets as collateral for these loans that he's basically taking out. But in addition to offering him his own assets, he's also offering collateral from cases that he won where the money is supposed to go to the clients. He's actually using that money as collateral, saying, hey, when I win this case of $8 million, I'll give that $8 million to you because I owe you money. That's what this is saying. It's saying that coincidentally, while he received some of these loans, like let's say he received a loan today from a lender for $5 million, the plaintiff is saying coincidentally, the firm at the same time gave a loan to Erika's company. So basically, he gets a loan from whatever lender, and then he gives that money instead of giving it to his clients, he's giving it to Erika's company. So, guys, that's not good. Not good, guys. I mean, this is all allegedly. I don't have all the evidence in front of me, but usually if someone files a complaint like this, they're following it on the basis that they had the receipts and evidence to prove this. That's what you guys have to keep in mind. They're not going to just put something like this in a complaint if they don't have some evidence of it. Now, some of this could be speculation, but they're still going to have to prove their position, which we'll find out later if this goes to trial, right? It says, in a matter of inspired attempt to protect his own wealth and appease his aggressive and well-heeled lenders, on information and belief, Girardi has in fact used client settlement funds, including money owed to the families of the victims of Lion Air Flight 610, to pay down loans, leaving clients with little, if anything. I talked about this earlier, right? The settlement money that was supposed to give to his clients, he's been giving it to his people he owes money to already. Fucked up, right? It says, defendant California Attorney Lending is one such lender. On information and belief, it has knowingly received embezzled client money from the Lion Air settlements. Similarly, defendant Stillwell Madison, a lender that recently had received a writ of attachment for $5,847,411 placed against Girardi Keese for a defaulted loan, and that is presently seeking to recover those funds and potentially has recovered some already, may also be receiving the proceeds of the embezzled client money. But these two lenders are hardly alone. Numerous other lenders and creditors have collected or are seeking to collect from Girardi. Yet, on information and belief, Girardi continues to embezzle funds owed to clients into his own personal and firm bank accounts. In turn, he continues to use that money to fund his and Erika's lavish lifestyle, release personal guarantees, pay down loans, route the money to friends and family, and satisfy other outstanding debts. By receiving Tom's money, creditors are accepting ill-gotten gains, which they know or should know was money collected by Girardi through criminal embezzlement of client funds. Secondary concerns regarding the client funds. Defendants GK, Girardi, Griffin, and Lira have breached enforceable co-counsel agreements with plaintiff Edelson for the litigation cases centralized in Lion Air Flight JT610 crash. On information and belief, the money plaintiff Edelson is owed is also being misappropriated by defendants, including by defendant California Attorney Lending. California Attorney Lending has accepted illegally gotten gains it knew or should have known were not property of GK, but instead belonged to Edelson PC, such that the California Attorney Lending tortuously interfere with the fee contract between Edelson and GK. As such, this lawsuit requests that the court order 1. An accounting of all funds transferred from Boeing that were intended for any GK client, inclusive of any transfer to third-party parties associated with or transfers made for the benefit of GK, related to the settlement of the plane crash, and a full accounting of what subsequently became of those funds. 2. the disgorgement of all such funds from any defendant or any non-party who was improperly in receipt of those funds. 3, the transfer of those funds to the appropriate client recipients, and only after those steps have been accomplished and any other remedial steps the court deems warranted. That 4, the payment of contractually required attorney's fees to Edelson PC. So they're asking for 4 things in this complaint. So every complaint has to have a relief that the plaintiff is seeking. So this plaintiff is seeking 4 reliefs, right? 1, they want to see accounting of all the funds that were given to GK by Boeing for the settlement. They want to see accounting of where that money is and where it went. Any funds that were from Boeing have been wrongfully given to other people. Basically, they want those funds back, right? 3, they want those funds transferred to the victims of the plane crash, and only after those funds are transferred to the actual victims of the plane crash. Then 4, they want their attorney's fees that they're entitled to. So, I mean, honestly, this firm is acting in, what's the word? I don't know the right word for this, but they are really acting in due faith, because they're saying they don't even care about being paid right now. What they want, more importantly, is for the victims to be paid, and only after they are paid do they want their settlement money. So they don't even care when they get paid. As long as the clients are paid, then they're happy with that, right? So shout out to you, Edelson PC, because you're doing the right thing, right? So now we move on to the next section, which is discussion of who the parties are in the case. All right, so the parties. Plaintiff is Edelson PC, which is an Illinois professional corporation operating as a law firm with its principal place of address. So it's just giving you the parties. I can probably skip through this section. It's because we mentioned it in the beginning. So it's plaintiff is this firm. Defendants are Tom, his firm, Erika, a bunch of other attorneys that are associated with the company, Erika's company, two lending companies, and a John Doe, right? Jurisdiction and venue, that's the next section that tells you where this case is going to be heard. So we can skip that. All right, guys, so now we're going to get to the factual allegations, which is the meat of this complaint, right? And this is the best part, because it gives you a full timeline of everything that's happened, right? So we're going to start from the very beginning. So we start with the crash of Lion Air Flight 610 and subsequent litigation. So on the morning of October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610, flying on a Boeing 737 MAX 8 model aircraft, departed Jakarta, Indonesia. Shortly after takeoff, the flight crew contacted air traffic control and requested to return to Jakarta, but the flight never made it. After a series of chaotic maneuvers resulting from a fundamental system failure, Flight 610 plummeted into the ocean. All 189 souls on board, who would have experienced unthinkable terror in their final moments, were killed on impact. Sorry, I don't know. That just made me really emotional to think about this. I know I've been getting kind of riled up with this whole thing, but it's honestly just because I genuinely feel bad for these families. I can only imagine this happening to someone in my family or even someone that I know, and just to think they might not even ever get justice because of fucking Tom and him embezzling the money. It's such a big deal to me. This really just gets to me, guys. I'm sorry. I can't even believe I'm fucking crying like this. I'm so stupid. I'm sorry, but it just makes me really emotional to even think about this. Just the flight alone, so many people dying, and you can just imagine how scary it was for them to just be literally plummeting down to the ocean, not knowing what's going to happen, probably thinking about their families in their last moment, and their families are still, they're not made whole. They're not even get their money because it's all gone. This is just so fucked up. And just to think Erika's just on this TV show, seeing all this unfold, and not one mention of the victims out of her mouth so far. Everything's just been about her, and her life is basically gonna be over, and her lifestyle's over, and that's all she cares about. It just really pisses me off. It makes me so sad for these victims. So I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to get choked up like this, but I'm sorry, guys. Let's get into this, okay? It says, following this tragic accident, government investigations determined that the aircraft's anti-stall system, the maneuvering characteristic augmentation system, caused the aircraft's nose to suddenly and without warning drop and dive deeply. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. It says, following the revelations regarding Boeing's design defects and other failures, litigation ensued on behalf of those that had lost loved ones, in some cases entire families, and minors. I'm sorry, guys. In some cases, entire families and minors who lost both parents. More than a dozen of those families directly or indirectly retained GK and expected that Girardi and other lawyers at his firm will represent their best interests and deliver the proceeds of any successful outcome to them. In the months that followed, litigation took place in this district with the assistance of Plaintiff Edelson before the Honorable Thomas M. Durkin, eventually leading to a series of mediations. In the end, Boeing reached individual settlements with each of the clients and families represented by GK and Edelson. The principal terms of the settlements that were reached in early 2020 and finalized thereafter. So that's just like the facts of the crash, guys. I'm sorry, I have to get myself together or I'm not gonna be able to finish this because I don't know why this is just making me so emotional. I'm so sorry, guys. I feel so bad. This video is already long enough and I'm fucking it up. I'm sorry. So, okay. Alright, I'm good. Alright, so now next section is the failure of the defendant Girardi, J.K. Griffin, Lira to transfer the proceeds of settlements to the victims' families. It says, throughout the pendency of the Lion Air litigation and the post-settlement process, GK attorneys maintained total exclusive control over communication with the clients. In February 2020, Edelson attorney RHOBH was notified by GK attorney Griffin that he was beginning to receive executed settlement agreements from the clients. As was the plan, Edelson in turn began preparing motions seeking court approval for each settlement, providing for an allocation of settlement proceeds to minor heirs of the descendants, the first of which was filed on February 21st, 2020. That motion was granted by the court on February 24th, 2020, and the case was dismissed. So basically, the way the settlement process was going to work was before the settlement checks can be sent to each of the clients, they had to sign like some type of settlement agreement that's showing like, okay, this is how much you're getting, and you agree to all these terms, and okay, sign the dotted line. And once they get those back, then the plaintiff Edelson's firm would file a motion seeking to enforce the settlement, and they would attach like the settlement agreement to it, and then the court would see this and like dismiss the case as basically being concluded, right? So that's what they had to do for each and every single client. So it says, soon after dismissing the case was entered on February 24, 2020, Mr. Schwartz inquired with defendant Griffin as to when he expected Boeing to fund the settlements. Griffin said that Boeing was waiting to receive all the executed settlement agreements from each of GK's and Edelson's collective clients. Griffin further stated that he was still waiting on several releases to be executed and returned, but expected to receive them shortly. The following week, Edelson secured approval of 3 more settlement agreements involving allocations to minors that were returned and executed, and those cases were also dismissed because he followed the motions with the court, right? Meanwhile, defendant Griffin and then his partner at GK, defendant Lira, continued to represent that they expected the remaining settlement agreements to be executed by clients shortly, at which time Boeing would fund the settlement. As it turned out, though, it would take several more months for the remaining settlement agreements to be executed by the clients. Beginning in April 2020, Edelson attorneys began reaching out to defendants Griffin and Laura almost on a weekly basis to get an update on the status of getting the settlement agreements executed and the settlements funded. The thought being that the clients who had executed the settlement agreement shouldn't have to continue to wait for the others to do so. Defendants Griffin and Lair would respond periodically with little more than the statement that they were still waiting on executed settlement agreements from the clients and that nothing could be done to move Boeing off its position, and that it needed all of its clients to sign and return the settlement agreements before it released the settlement proceeds. So basically the plaintiff is saying, I already gotten you the settlement agreements for my clients. It's not fair that my clients will have to wait just because some of your clients are still, haven't signed their papers yet. Like, Boeing should just, give us the settlement checks for the ones who have done what they're supposed to do, and then, the ones who haven't, they'll get their money when they finally comply. But Girardi's firm said that Boeing is not willing to do this. Boeing wants all of the settlement agreements before they cut the settlement check, right? So it says on May 11, 2020, Jay Edelson sent defendant Lear an email expressing concern about the delay in finalizing the settlements, particularly in light of Boeing's public pronouncements at the time that it was considering whether to file for bankruptcy and the need to get them funded for the sake of the clients. So this is a big deal, guys. So basically, around this time in May, plaintiff was getting worried because not only had the settlement had not been funded yet because they're still waiting for those agreements from some of the clients. now they're scared because Boeing had made it public that they might file for bankruptcy. So if if they file for bankruptcy and they don't have any money, then some is not going to be funded and none of these clients are going to get their money. So it's a big deal. So the plaintiff's trying to make this go as fast as possible before this possibly happens, right? So it says defendant Lear responded by email providing a more detailed explanation of where things stood on specific releases, why it was taking so long for them to be translated and executed by clients, and repeating that Boeing would release the settlement funds when they received the signed releases. He assured Ellison that the funds were paid by insurance and secured in an escrow account, so there was no risk posed by a potential bankruptcy. Lear's explanation was not completely satisfying, but Lear and the other lawyers at GK were the only ones in contact with the clients, and Lear's explanation of why it was taking longer for certain of them to execute and return the settlement agreements seemed plausible. So it seemed like a reasonable explanation as to why it's taking so long, because they have to be translated and things like that. And the defendant attorney basically reassured the plaintiff that it's okay, even if Boeing goes bankrupt, the money is secured in an escrow account, so it's not going to matter. The money is still going to be there no matter what, right? It says, but several more weeks passed without any further updates regarding the status of the outstanding settlement agreements. Then, on June 11, 2020, defendant Lear sent an email to Edison asking to set up a call to discuss the status of the cases. On that call, which occurred on June 16, 2020, defendant Lear informed Edison that he had recently resigned from GK and explained that the settlements had finally been funded and that the bulk of the funds were received and held by GK. Though defendant Lear was intent on discussing which firm he believed should be responsible for paying Edison's share of attorney's fees, GK or his new firm, the attorneys at Edison were instead focused on the more fundamental question that they had been asking for several months. Have the clients received their proceeds from the settlement? So the plaintiff's saying, I don't give a fuck about my money right now. I care about the money that is supposed to be going to the clients. Have they been paid yet? What's going on with that? So it's important to note that defendant Lear, I forgot the first name, had basically resigned from Girardi Keese and opened their own firm. So now, this Lear person is communicating directly with plaintiff from his or her own law firm, right? So it says defendant Lear, now a partner at defendant Johnson, Hutchinson, and Lear, failed to provide a coherent answer to this question, and instead, on July 6, 2020, sent a letter to Edison that, without detail, claimed that certain line air clients had received their settlement proceeds by Boeing, certain clients had not, and that a check to Edison for some portion of the attorney's fees owed to them was included with the letter as partial payment. Edison did not, and has not since, cashed that check. Again, whoever this firm is, y'all, shout out to you guys. You guys are portraying yourself as being super ethical in this whole scenario. Basically, this Lear person who has a new firm now sent the plaintiff a check for a portion of the fees that they're owed for representing the case, right? And the plaintiff is saying that they received the check. They actually did receive the check. But they have not, to this day, cashed that check because they do not want to cash any money until all the clients are paid. They are acting in the most ethical way possible, and I have complete respect for this firm right now. So again, and I want to point out about this timeline that they're mentioning emails and letters, and all of these can be provided in evidence. So the firm is not going to mention any of these emails if they're not going to have proof. Because you have to, when you go to trial, you have to provide proof of all the evidence that you're alleging, right? So I'm sure there's all these proof these emails actually exist. So that just further makes the case against Tom, right? So it says, a few days later, Edison responded with a letter to defendants Girardi and Lear, which stated, among other things, that in response to David's cover letter that encloses a check to our firm for some portion of the fees owed on 3 of the Lion Air cases, we decline to accept any monies until we are given adequate assurances that each and every one of our collected clients who are entitled to settlement monies have, in fact, received the entirety of the monies owed. The letter also requested, again, information about the status of the settlement proceeds owed to the clients. Several days later, defendant Lear responded, but again did not say with any clarity which of the clients had received full settlement payments and whether any were still owed money. Lear also took the position that because he left GK, he no longer had any ongoing involvement in the cases, and any further questions regarding the status of the settlement proceeds owed to the clients and the fees owed to Edison should be directed to the defendants Girardi and Griffin, since GK was the law firm that had been engaged by and had the relationship with the clients. So basically, Lear wants no part of this. Lear is saying, I'm not with that firm anymore, so any questions you have needs to be directed at Girardi and Keese, right? Edelson's attorneys can continue to press defendants Girardi and Griffin as to the status of the settlement proceeds and whether any of the clients were yet to be paid. Starting in July 2020, Edelson's managing partner, Rafe Balbamanian, took the lead in communicating with Girardi and Griffin. In a series of phone calls that took place over the course of the latter half of July 2020, defendant Griffin indicated that despite Boeing fully funding the settlement, he understood from defendant Girardi that the clients had not received the full amount owed to them and were still owed about half what was due to them. Griffin could not elaborate on why such an amount was still owed to certain clients or the status of the remaining settlement proceeds because Girardi is the sole equity owner of GK with sole and exclusive control over the firm's bank accounts, including its clients' trust accounts. As a result, Griffin said those questions could only be answered by Girardi. Griffin also claimed that part of the difficulty in speaking with and delaying getting answers from Girardi was attributable to Girardi being unavailable in recent weeks due to a serious illness that caused him to be hospitalized and for which he sought treatment. So basically, this attorney Griffin is saying that yes, he's a partner of the firm, but Girardi has sole control over all of the accounts, and basically this guy has no access or information to any of it, which I don't believe that, because even if he has control over it, you should still have at least access to the trust accounts, because I work in a law firm, work for a few law firms, and the client trust accounts, everyone uses like some type of a case management software where you can see all the money in your firm's account, you can see all the clients' accounts, how much money is in there. So all these attorneys should be able to see how much money is in there. So I don't think this is an excuse, and every client should have their own case file. And if they don't, that's already unethical, and that might even be a violation of the California State Bar, because you're supposed to have records of everything in your client's files. So if you don't, or for some reason it's only accessed by one attorney, that seems completely unethical, but that's just on me. So it said, Balbamanian ultimately got an opportunity to speak with defendant Girardi in late July. Girardi's explanation regarding the status of the settlement proceeds was extremely convoluted and meandering. He couched everything in terms of him recovering from the illness and that he was being treated for, so Balbamanian would have to bear with his inability to give a long and detailed explanation of why payment of the settlement proceeds to his clients, and of lesser importance, payment of Edelson's portion of the fees, had been delayed. Girardi claimed that his illness, which caused him to be away from his firm several weeks, is what ultimately caused the, in his words, mistake of not getting certain clients paid in full, and that he planned to immediately remedy the issue by getting the remaining amount that was owed wired out within a few days. Girardi said that he or Griffin would follow up once that occurred. Despite his assurances, Girardi did not follow back up with Balbamanian. Instead, Balbamanian made several more attempts over the course of the following weeks to reach Girardi to confirm that payment had been made to the clients. They finally spoke again in late August 2020, at which point the conversation quickly became contentious after Girardi stated that he didn't need to explain himself to Balbamanian when it came to the clients of GK, and that, as he promised a few weeks ago, arrangement had been made for them to receive the remaining monies owed to them, as well as the attorney's fees owed to Edelson. Girardi then advised that Griffin would follow up and quickly ended the call. So can you even imagine that? So they first talked in late July, and then a month went past, and then they finally spoke in August, and the money had still not been paid, even though Tom had already claimed that it would be wired out in a few days in July. Just despicable. In what started to feel like a recurring theme, though, Balbamanian was the one who would need to follow up to confirm Girardi had made good on his promises. Eventually, though, on or about September 3rd, 2020, Griffin advised Balbamanian that a wire for half of the outstanding amount owed to the clients had been initiated, with the other half set to be initiated the following Monday. While Griffin said he could send proof of the wired funds, he ultimately never did. So he never sent proof that he even wired these funds to the plaintiff, right? So with the payments to the clients seemingly out of the way, the conversation shifted to the fees owed to Edelson on account of the settlements. As Edelson had made clear from the outset, the timing of the payment of their fees wasn't of particular concern, and that since the clients had been paid, payment of the fees could be made at any time before the end of the year. To that end, Balbamanian requested that, and Griffin agreed to provide a financial statement showing the settlement proceeds dispersed and the amount of fees owed to Edelson and when they would likely be paid. Then, in November 2020, Plaintiff Edelson received another letter from Defendant Lear regarding the settlement proceeds paid to certain other line air clients and how said proceeds were being distributed. Among other things, the letter stated that GK's 50% interest, which included Edelson's portion, and the gross attorney's fees generated from the settlement of the certain clients' cases had been directly transferred to Defendant California Attorney Lending in the direction of Girardi. Lira also included a check to Edelson as another partial payment of attorney's fees owed to them. Edelson did not then, has not since, cash this check. This letter makes clear Lira had knowledge of and cooperated with Girardi's misappropriation and conversion of settlement proceeds, since at least a portion of said proceeds were being transferred to and accepted by lenders of Girardi instead of Ellison, who were rightfully entitled to them. So this is a big deal because in this letter that was sent to the plaintiff, it shows that 50% of the money, like the settlement money that was supposed to go to Girardi and Keese for their portion of the settlement money, and then also the plaintiff as well, 50% of it was sent to this lending company, which makes no sense at all, when it should have just been going to Girardi Keese and then also the plaintiff and his firm. Why it's going to this lending company is beyond me, but it makes no sense, right? It says, though Ellison was under the impression that the settlement proceeds owed to the clients had finally been paid, Lira's letter once again raises concern, particularly with regard to the part referencing Girardi directing to the attorney's fee portion of the settlement proceeds that, in part, belonged to Ellison, to a litigation funder. As a result, Balbamanian reached back out to Griffin to inquire about whether he could provide any more insight when Ellison could expect payment of its fees. Defendant Griffin responded that there had been some positive developments, but that Girardi was undergoing another medical procedure, so Griffin needed a couple more days to speak with him and report back. After several more days passed, Balbamanian again followed up with Griffin and inquired about what Griffin characterized as positive developments. Griffin advised that the positive developments were that certain of the Lion Aircraft clients had demanded a call with Girardi to gain an understanding of when they would be paid the balance of the settlement proceeds owed to them. Balbamanian responded that his understanding from Girardi and Griffin was that the clients had been paid and that the only outstanding obligation on the Lion Air litigation was Edelson's attorney's fees. But Griffin advised that that understanding was mistaken and that Girardi hadn't actually paid the clients as previously represented. Griffin further stated that he was skeptical that Girardi or GK had the financial means to satisfy GK's obligation to those certain Lion Air clients that are still owed settlement proceeds in Edelson. So this attorney that actually works for GK saying that no, the clients have actually never been paid, and the previous assumption that they had been paid is actually wrong, and that as of right now, he doesn't even know the firm can even afford to pay those clients. So this is fucked up, guys. In the week following this letter, and after attempts by Edelson to elicit additional information from defendant Griffin, Girardi called Balbamanian numerous times, including over Thanksgiving weekend, to plead his case and presumably ward off this complaint. 2 voicemails, so there's going to be proof of these voicemails, from Girardi can be found here and here. So it provides proof of these voicemails in this complaint, right? So the voicemail states, in part, and this is Tom talking, "We're doing good on this thing, getting things squared away and shit. Don't be mean to me, be nice to me, I'm doing good. It was because of me that we got this, by the way. I'll be in touch, don't worry about everything, we're friends, things are going to work out good." That's the first voicemail. The second voicemail states, by Tom, "We screwed up here a little bit. We had 3 different air crashes and they got a little screwed up. I'll get everything worked out by Thursday. I'm so sorry, this never happened before. Anyway, everything will be smoothed out over on Thursday." Just before the filing of this complaint, Jay Edelson and Rafi Balbamanian reached out and spoke to defendant Griffin. During that call, defendant Griffin informed them they should get in touch with defendant Robert Finnerty, who would be serving as a receiver charged with overseeing the windup of defendant GK. Shortly thereafter, Edelson and Balbamanian reached out to defendant Finnerty. Defendant Finnerty explained that he and his apparently new firm, defendant Abir Cohen Trazen Salo, it's a different firm, represent a creditor of Girardi and GK, and that they, along with Girardi's lenders and certain other creditors, have more or less agreed that he and his firm would act as receiver, which meant his firm would essentially be taking over GK for the purpose of liquidating its assets, including litigating to settlement or judgment as necessary, any ongoing cases, and winding up its affairs, including payment of debt owed to its creditors, which would presumably include the Lion Air client and plaintiff Edelson. So basically, this new firm is taking over, and they're going to be overseeing all the cases to ensure that all the settlement proceeds are given to the right people and all that, right? It says, following the call, the plaintiff Edelson came to learn that defendant Finnerty had been a decades-long partner at GK, who only recently left GK in May 2020, and who has on numerous occasions represented Girardi and the firm against actions by clients claiming their money had been mishandled. At no time during this call, or the call with defendant Griffin, was any of this disclosed to Edelson or Balbamanian. So basically, this new firm didn't even tell the plaintiff that they had actually been a partner of Girardi and Keese for over a decade. That's a big deal, guys. So despite the initial representations of defendant Griffin and later ones by defendants Lira and Girardi, on information belief, upon the dismissal of each case, Boeing transferred the settlement proceeds to GK in accordance with the terms of the settlement agreement for the purpose of GK distributing said proceeds to GK Alliance Air clients. On further information and belief, Girardi, who exercised exclusive and total control of all bank accounts for GK, embezzled the settlement proceeds transferred by Boeing for his own personal use with knowledge and cooperation of defendants Lyra and Griffin. So what do we have so far? So far we have a timeline of everything that happened from the very beginning. This plaintiff clearly trying to get the money for the client, not being successful, his communications with Tom and his firm, and not being successful at all. You know, being lied to about the clients being paid and then being told the clients were not paid and that the firm doesn't even have any money. So it's a lot, right? So the next section talks about basically the firm has been publicly stated have been like sued a bunch of times for tens of millions of dollars for lawsuits have been brought against them for like misappropriating money and embezzling money. So it outlines like some of the information that's been put out there against like how much money people have sued them for. So I'm not going to really get into all this. I mean, I could, but we still have like 10 more pages to go, and I don't want to. This video is already getting long, so I'm going to post a link to this complaint so you guys can actually read it for yourself if you want to. So we're kind of going to skip this portion. It just talks about all the like other people who've basically sued them. So actually, I'm going to read a portion of it. So it says, as alleged in those complaints, followed by like other people, Girardi failed to make payments and quickly defaulted on those loans. However, he managed to negotiate forbearance agreements with both lenders within weeks of each other, without either lender having knowledge of the other, that obligated his firm to make millions of dollars in payments just in the following few months. As it turns out, the forbearance agreements were simply stalling tactics, as Girardi and his firm then failed to make any of those payments as well. On information believed to save off collection efforts, Girardi and his lenders and other creditors have entered into a series of creditor agreements which provide that any monies received in defendant GK's bank account be directed to those lenders and creditors. But because of Girardi's now widely known financial troubles, those lenders and other creditors knew or should have known that monies being redirected to defendant Girardi are likely embezzled client funds and co-counsel fees, and thus were illegally attained by defendant Girardi in the first instance. As a result, by knowing accepted those embezzled funds, the lenders, including defendant's California attorney lending and defendant Girardi's other creditors, are furthering his illegality. Indeed, on information belief, Girardi and GK have directed Lion Air client funds and money otherwise owed to third parties like Edelson to lenders including defendant California attorney lending in order to stave off these creditors. So for its part on information believed, defendant California attorney lending through its due diligence would be aware of 1, if client settlement funds have been received in the Lion Air cases and if and when they were paid out to the client. 2, the amount of fees held back from these funds under the client contract. 3, any obligations imposed on those fees by a third party such as Edelson. And 4, that Edelson's had appearances on file in the Lion Air cases, was a primary participant in the litigation. By entering into agreement with GK that requires 50% of gross attorney fees be directed to itself, California attorney lending cannot avoid the knowledge that it is accepting embezzled funds that are contractually owed to the victims' families in lesser importance to Edison. This is both unethical and an unlawful interference with enforceable contracts. On information and belief, defendant Girardi, Jayne, EJ Global, everyone, have wrongfully transferred, misappropriated, and retained settlement funds owed to the victims of Lion Air Flight 610, as well as attorney fees owed to Edelson and other third parties. So the next section talks about the funds, and basically they're making the case that the funds have been misappropriated and embezzled and given to like certain lenders and creditors and other people, and it was supposed to be money that went to the clients, right? So the next count is accounting, and it says that a large but comfortable sum of money was transferred from Boeing to defendant GK in mid-2020. The money was for the benefit of Lion Air clients represented by GK minus agreed upon attorney's fees, and presently the whereabouts, distribution, allegation, or transfer of those funds is not known by plaintiff. Any information on the current status of the location of that money is within exclusive knowledge of the defendant. As such, plaintiff has an inadequate legal remedy that it cannot determine what party is responsible and what amount and for its damages. Plaintiff therefore seeks an order requiring all defendants to provide a full and complete accounting of all transactions or records relating to the Lion Air settlement money. So basically he wants accounting to show where all the money went, right? Count 3 is breach of contract, which basically this section talks about how they breached a contract because Edelson was owed money as well as the client, and the client did not receive that money, and if the funds were in fact embezzled and misappropriated, then that is a breach of contract because the agreement was for Edelson to get their portion of the money and then the clients to get their portion of the money too. So GK basically breached their contract by not doing what they're supposed to do. Because it says that they entered into 2 enforceable contracts, one with GK And then the first contract presented executed by GK provided that Edelson would receive 50% of the total attorney's fees recovered for a specific set of Lion Air clients in the matter. And Edelson was expected to act as local counsel as well as participate directly in litigation and settlement process. Second contract provided that Edelson would receive 20% of total attorney's fees recovered for a separate set of Lion Air clients. Count 4 is tortious interference with contract. Basically, this section talks about California attorney lending, basically interfering with the case by accepting embezzled funds that were meant for the client of the plane crash as well as the plaintiff's firm, right? So it's saying, you know, this lender interfered because it demanded payment from GK for money that was owed to them, and then he in turn accepted money that was supposed to be meant for the settlement for the clients, right? And it says, as a direct, foreseeable, and proximate result of the defendant California attorney lending's tortious interference with plaintiff's contracts, plaintiff has been damaged in amount to be proven at trial. Count 5 is conversion. This talks about, you know, the attorney's fees and the fact that, you know, plaintiff was not given his appropriate attorney's fees, and because the clients were not paid, chose not to accept partial payment. And it says that as a direct, foreseeable, and proximate result of the conversion of plaintiff's share of attorney's fees by defendant GK, plaintiff has been damaged in amount to be proven at trial. And the last is prayer for relief. This talks about what plaintiff is seeking. It says, this is what plaintiff is seeking to the court to enter an order. The order would state that creating a constructive trust of all money transferred from Boeing to GK in connection with the Lion Air settlements for the benefit of the Lion Air clients first, and then for the benefit of the plaintiff Edelson if sufficient funds remain in trust. In the alternative, an order requiring the disgorgement of all Lion Air client funds from any defendant or any non-party who is improperly in receipt of those funds. B, requiring all defendants to provide a full and complete accounting of all funds transferred from Boeing that were intended for any GK client, inclusive of any transfers to third parties associated with their transfers made for the benefit of GK related to the settlement in the plane crash, and a full accounting of what subsequently became of those funds. C, finding the defendant GK's firm. C is finding that defendant GK, Girardi, Griffins, and Lear's conduct constitutes a breach of contract. D, finding that the defendant California attorney lending conduct constitutes tortious interference with contract. E, finding that defendants GK, Girardi's, Griffins, and Lear's, and Johnson, Hutchinson, and Lear's conduct constitutes conversion. F, requiring that the transfer of all Lion client air funds to the appropriate client recipients. G, requiring the payment of all contractually required attorney's fees to Edelson PC only after the court confirms the full and complete payment to the Lion Air clients. H, awarding the plaintiff its costs and expenses in this litigation, including reasonable attorney's fees. And I, awarding any other such relief the court deems equitable and just. So that's it for this complaint, guys. So that is a lot to divulge and basically break apart. I feel like I gave you guys an explanation as I went through, but overall, basically the complaint is saying that, you know, this plaintiff firm, the Chicago-based firm, helped Girardi's firm represent these clients in the plane crash, that in terms of the agreement, Boeing had agreed to transfer all of the money, the settlement money, to Girardi's firm. So Girardi's firm had exclusive ownership and use of the money, and they were supposed to be directing to the right people. The plaintiff's firm did not have the money. They did not get transferred any of the money from Boeing. They alleged that, you know, the money never actually went to the clients, that instead was embezzled to other people like Erika and her company, this lending company, so on and so forth, that the plaintiff's firm was never paid in full, the clients were never paid in full, and as of right now, there is no type of accounting for where the money went. So they're basically demanding accounting showing where the money went, that the people be paid, and, you know, justice be served for the breach of contracts and things like that. So that's it. This video is already long. I really need to know what you guys think about this. I know this was such a long video, and I'm so sorry, but we need to cover everything. So Erika, you're not innocent in this at all, as I've already proven, because you knew about these lawsuits, and you, on the TV show, you're acting like you didn't know anything, but we have proof now that you did know, for a fact at least, about one of the lawsuits, which is the burn victim. And now we know all the allegations are being brought against Tom as far as the burn victim, the cancer payment, and now the plane crash, which we know more so about because we actually read the complaint. Now, I want to know what you guys think about this. I think I'm going to premiere this so that way we can discuss. So if you reached the part of this video, we've probably already been discussing this back and forth in my live chat. But that was it for this video. I'm sorry, it did get emotional at one point because this is really something I care about, and it's really hard for me to see that some of these victims might not ever get the relief that they deserve. And that just really, it really hurts me here. It really does, guys. So that was it for this video. I know, on another note, on actually a more positive note, the season 2 trailer for the Salt Lake City Real Housewives was released. I'm actually doing a reaction to video to that. It should be uploaded, if not today, maybe tomorrow, because I don't want to do like a double upload, because this is a lot in itself. So just be on the lookout for that. But I will see you guys in the next video, and thank you guys for diving into this with me, and let me know what you guys think in the comments, guys. I'll see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.